What is up, Pitt fans? Thank you so much for tuning in to Inside the Panthers on YouTube. My name is Steven Thompson, coming at you with another Inside Pitt practice report on this, the first day of Cincinnati week. Panthers blew out Wofford in their season opener 45-7, and now they set their sights on a Power 5 opponent. We heard from Pat Narduzzi today as he put a bow on Wofford and turned to the Bearcats. So we'll start with some stray thoughts from last week. Beginning with what Pat Narduzzi said about its team's maturity in this game against Wofford. During his tenure, they haven't always blown away teams like they did last Saturday, especially an FCS opponent like that. But they took care of business. They were locked in, minimal penalties, and didn't let up on an inferior opponent. Got off to a good start. Well, actually, I would say got off to a pretty shaky start, especially on offense, but really locked in and settled in and put that game away quickly, but kept their foot on the gas. Think about the good versus the kind of meh teams, Pitt teams of the past 9 years, and the good ones have really kind of laid it on and poured it on in these cupcake games. You think about New Hampshire in 21, UMass in 2021, even Rhode Island last year, and Austin P in 2020. When the Panthers, are pretty good, when they're even really good, they really are sharp in these games, and they come out and they really lay it on an inferior opponent, and that's what they did. So, it's easy to say this game doesn't matter very much, but I do think it's important for them to get off on the right foot. And I think it is a signal of what they're capable of when the Panthers do get off on that right foot and they show, really what they're capable of. So this was an unequivocally good start for the Panthers, and their head coach noticed that. Some other thoughts, more football specific stuff from that game. Narduzzi also talked about Phil Drakovic's play. Again, said it was really good. I think that showed up on film or excuse me, when you watch the game and in the box score. But Narduzzi added he was a little worried about the pressure that Phil did face at times, especially against that kind of opponent. Said the Panthers saw some stuff from Wofford that they weren't really expecting, and that forced them to let up some pressure through the A gaps between the guards and the center on the offensive line, and that affected many of Jurkovic's 6 incompletions. That's what Narduzzi really credited a lot of them too. And you expect Jake Cradle and Blake Suvovic to be really solid, but you throw Jason Collier Jr. in there, kind of on short notice. I guess he had a couple weeks to prepare to be a starter. After Ryan Jacoby went down, but that's not as much as a full summer, and building that chemistry along the offensive line, it could take some time. So that's something to watch. That interior of the offensive line and what kind of pressure they let up against Jurkovic, especially as the competition starts to take a step up this week. Narduzzi was also asked about the workloads, distribution for his running backs, and he was a little non-committal. Didn't really say anything definitive about how it's going to shake out. Daniel Carter took the bulk of the carries against Wofford and was listed as a co-starter with Rodney Hammond. Will that continue next week? Who really knows? Pat Narduzzi left it open-ended. Didn't really give a firm comment either way. Said practice this week will determine a lot of that. But, if you're asking me if I was a betting man, I'd probably bet on another committee game against Cincinnati unless someone gets real hot and, starts running for 100 yards or something like that, or 50 yards in the first half. Outside of that, I think you'll again see maybe Carter gets some carries. He earned that in a game setting, but, Rodney Hammond is the established guy. He's the one with the most game experience, and he's played pretty well in those games. So don't think you can count him out, obviously, but also I think Sebo Flemister did some good things coming out of the backfield to catch passes, and he's a hard runner as well, and an athlete and an experienced guy that knows what he's doing. So I think all three of those guys will see carries, and it'll just kind of come down to, who plays well enough on game day, who plays the best on game day when they actually get in that stadium and when the lights are on. So we'll see how that shakes out. We'll ask him about it a little bit later in the week and revisit that. And the last thing I want to talk about, at least from the Wofford game, was that Bub Means, he was the starting kick returner in that game, but he has been unseated by AJ Woods, who is now the starting kick returner. Don't think there's a whole lot going on here. I think just that Pitt wants to keep Means a little more fresh. He already plays on punt teams, so that's kind of a lot for a starting wide receiver to also take on, especially if they are sending him deep on a bunch of plays. I don't think they did a whole lot of that against Wofford, but I think they expect to do it a little bit more when Cincinnati's playing. The word that comes to mind is a more honest style of defense, but that may come across wrong. Narduzzi said that the Terriers were playing deep, like real deep, quite a lot. So it was tough to get Means open on those deep shots that they promised were coming. So we'll see how that works out. I assume Cincinnati with some better athletes and some better talent might play a little more straight up and a little more traditional, a little closer to the line, especially after Panthers kind of ran right over Wofford. So we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, Means going to take a little bit of a back seat while Woods steps up. Woods is probably one of the fastest guys on the team. I think this is a good fit, and he's asked for this opportunity for a while. So I think the Panthers are still in good hands. Nardizzi said that they have a few guys that they feel comfortable taking kickoffs. So, Woods will take the bulk of those, but we'll see how that shakes out. Maybe they slide someone in if Woods is getting a ton of burn as a starting corner. So we'll see how that works out this week at practice and then heading into game day against Cincinnati at Acrisure Stadium. Speaking of the Bearcats, we got a brief look into them, and we'll explore them a little bit more later this week. But right now, this team, there's not a whole lot to know. It's a team going through a coaching transition. Scott Satterfield is in after Luke Fickell took the Wisconsin job. He was a great coach and led them to some of their most successful years in program history. Satterfield comes in with a lot of experience as a head coach, former head coach at Louisville, bringing a lot of his guys with him. Also some transfers from elsewhere around the ACC and the SEC. But they only returned 4 starters, and that's combined on both sides of the ball, and they beat the brakes off of an Eastern Kentucky team last week that I don't think gave them much of a test at all. So that's what I mean when there's not a whole lot to know yet. Like, they are going to learn just as much about themselves in the Pitt game as Pitt is going to learn about themselves in this game against Cincinnati. So there are a couple things that are fairly certain. They're ready for this leap, I think. You just look at the way they recruit and the way they've played over the past couple of years. I think Cincinnati's ready for the Big 12 and the Power 5. They play like it, they recruit like it, they spend like it. And the other thing is that they will definitely challenge challenge Pitt way more than Wofford did. That's kind of a given. There's a couple reasons for that. Emory Jones, their quarterback, is a mobile guy, but he's got some talent. They have speed at receiver. Like I said, transfers from SEC country. Jones threw for 5 touchdowns in the opener, so obviously a threat to throw the ball. I think the secondary for Pitt is really going to get tested for the first time this season. You're pretty sure about what you got at corner. You might even be better than you were a year ago with MJ Devonshire. It appears kind of taking a leap and a step forward as a defensive back, and then obviously Williams and Woods are pretty sure things as well after starting for last year and the year before. So, or earning starting reps, last year and the year before. So, this team is really going to get tested for the first time. And when you think about the new safeties, they think they played well against Wofford, but again, they weren't really challenged. So you get 2 guys with limited starting experience on the back end, and we'll see what they can do against a pretty explosive passing offense. So, and then, like we talked about, that middle of the offensive line is going to get tested. Dante Corleone is an all Big 12 interior lineman. He played real well against Eastern Kentucky. This is a real proven guy, a preseason all-conference selection. So, again, look towards that middle of the offensive line at Cradle, Zubovic, and then Jason Collier Jr. These guys are going to get tested against some real good athletes and some real talented defenders on the Cincinnati front. So those are the things that I'm looking for the most as we head into game week. We'll have more content for you coming down the pipe later this week as we talk to more Pitt players and coaches and get a glimpse into practice, prepare for the Panthers' first real test of the year. So with that, I'm headed out of here. Thanks for tuning into another Inside Pitt Practice Report. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to us on YouTube. That's youtube.com/@InsideThePanthers, and find all of our reporting right from Pitt practices, and games at InsideThePanthers.com. Again, thanks so much for tuning into another Inside Pitt Practice Report.